now. Welcome, hi. Today we will be talking about how to deal with distressing events. Now, obviously, I will be talking in the context of the war that is happening right now in Ukraine, but hopefully some of the tools and the things that I will talk about will be useful for you in your everyday life. And I do hope that this hour that we're going to spend together will serve as a reminder to take care of yourselves and some of the options that you might have in taking care of yourself. Oh no, I noticed that my application is in a different language, but I think we might be starting. For those of you who are still, I think, joining, again, welcome. My name is Ola. I'm a psychologist, a coach cooperating with hearme, and hopefully today I will be able to share some of my knowledge about how to deal with the distressing events. Now, I will be using a presentation that might be also, as we are recording this session, might serve as a reminder later on. I hope to cover a few of the aspects of the situation. Of course, I cannot cover all the perspectives in just 1 hour. So I focused on something, on my approach and what I can give you guys as the tools to help you in your everyday life. But please, if you have any questions, we will have a session at the end of some questions and answers, but you can write them in the chat and you can write them in the dedicated box of the questions. So I will share my screen now, and I think 2 minutes past. If some other people will be joining, then I think we'll be able to still they'll be able to still catch up. Okay, I hope you see my presentation, and I am assuming that you are. So first of all, I kind of wanted to take a moment and ask you, how are you? And we're gonna spend some time here. I would like you guys to really sit in and walk with me throughout this very popular but not really mindful questions. I would like you to kind of take a second to understand, where are you in your thoughts? Where is it that you've been thinking about in this past days, past moments, and what are you thinking about today? What are you focused on? Is there a leitmotif in your thoughts? Obviously, we are here, so we are thinking about the webinar, but what are some other thoughts that you can be catching right now? I also would invite you to kind of understand, where are you with your feelings? Are you excited? Are you sad? Are you fearful? What is it that you're feeling right now? And I kind of would invite you to check, how are you in your bodies? Maybe you're feeling like you have some tensions in the back, like I do. I think for a week I've been having a lot of pain here. So if you notice me being like this during the presentation, that's because I'm trying to get rid of the tension and to kind of relieve my body. And to share with you how I am feeling, I am now obviously thinking about the webinar, and I do want to give you some value for this hour that we are together. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm trying to be mindful of the time, but I'm also checking here as if you can see my presentation and everything. I am therefore nervous. And I have some underlying feeling of sadness that's been going on for quite a few days. And as I said to you, it's been accumulating in my back. So even now I'm feeling like a little bit uncomfortable. I have to move, as you can see, with my screen sharing, so I do not see your questions right now. And the audio and video are disabled because I'm in the mode of presenting right right now, but at the end of the presentation, I will switch it to the webinar so we can interact a little bit more. And I'm sad to see that someone is experiencing pain in the neck, but yeah, please guys, check how are your bodies. Okay, so if you know who you are, how are you? Sorry, and you know what you've been thinking, and how are you feeling, and how are those emotions manifesting in your body? Let's move on, and I would like to share with you that I will be sharing some of my psychological knowledge about the situation to start with. Then I will move on to all the tools that we can use to support ourselves, and then I will spend a minute on how to support others. But this webinar as a whole is not really dedicated to how to support refugees. It's more dedicated on how to support ourselves. And I know that there will be separate also content into how to support especially the refugees in the current situation of war, which is, and I would like to say that from the beginning, is a multi-level, horrible, tremendously terrifying situation. And this is something that I think it's important to say out loud that the war obviously has a tremendous effect on the people of Ukraine, and we are experiencing horror, and we are looking at people who are experiencing horror. But this is also touching us in different ways. We might be supporting others going through that. We might be supporting the refugees, but we also are experiencing threat to our own feelings of safety, or the safety of our friends in Ukraine or family in Ukraine, or to be quite frank, to our families anywhere else, as we are fearing what this war might do to Europe. And, you know, in a way, this war and this invasion is a loss of a world as we had known. And I'm speaking to myself and some people who are around my generation, that war for me has always been something of either great distance in time, as the Second World War, or a great distance in distance. I knew that there were wars happening in other places of the world, but I didn't feel like I was close to them. And obviously, in this aspect, we are experiencing a peaceful, a loss of the peaceful Europe right now with the situations in Ukraine, and this. So this is a horrific, multi-level, obviously, situation that we're dealing with, and watching the terror is obviously doing a lot to our mental health. And now this is something that I really want to stress in this presentation, and I really want to stress, you know, throughout this hour that we're going to spend together, that you might be reacting in a very, very varied way. And reaction to stress is deeply personal. Reaction to crisis is deeply personal. Reaction to fear, to anger, to panic, to terror, to threat is very, very personal. So I want you to kind of treat yourself with kindness, and remember that however you are reacting, it might be very biological about how your system is. It might be, you know, connected to your previous experiences. However you're reacting right now, it is fine, as long as obviously you're not hurting others with your reactions. But I want us to kind of take away from that it is a horrible situation. We might be reacting in lots of ways, and the last thing that I would want is us to judge our reactions and then to add some fuel to the fire. And now, as for the stress reactions, and I will be sharing this to hopefully normalize different ways of how can we be dealing with the stress that we have experienced as societies. Is obviously it's been a huge stressor, and stress is a biological, physiological reaction that can affect us in many ways, such as obviously experiencing unusual levels of anxiety, fear, panic, sometimes a reaction of being frozen. So all these experiences are normal in a stressful event. You might be experiencing changes to physiology, to your heartbeat that is being running, sweating. You might be experiencing something that is a tunnel vision. So you're only focused on the stressor, or to the contrary, you're only focused on something that is going to help you out. This is also a mechanism that is, helping us with, or is supposed to help us with dealing with stress in evolutionary situations. But we might be experiencing other cognitive consequences, like loss of concentration. And quite honestly, this is why I am having this presentation, because I've been very, very stressed, and I think my concentration has been up to 50% in the past weeks. So I think without this presentation, this meeting would have zero structure. So that is very okay. We might be experiencing some of our defense mechanisms being active, like us trying to rationalize the situation, or us trying to cut off from the situation, anything like that, or isolate from the situation of stress. Some of us might be acting very impulsively, and some of us might be acting and focus on acting right now. This is also fueled by adrenaline, by dopamine, and things like that are forcing us to kind of act. Some of us might be engaging in high-risk actions, and that includes high-risk sexual behavior. That's also a reaction to stress. We might be experiencing sleep loss, or many other somatic experiences, such as, it's a typical that our gut is reacting also to stress. So we have some somatic consequences. I'm just going to check if you guys can still see my screen, but you are, so I'm happy with that. So now that is normal in any stress situation, okay? And now this is a war, so it adds additional layers to that. So we are experiencing threat for friends and family. We're fearful of the outcome of war. We are experiencing a huge value-based conflict. I do speak for probably most of us here who are against war, against invasions, against death inflicted on people in such a cruel way, against cruelty. So this is another stressor. And quite frankly, what I've been experiencing with doing sessions and webinars and participating in different meetings over the past week and a half is that we are experiencing quite a lot of guilt, as in I am not reacting the way I should be reacting, or I am not helping enough, which is fueling the stress reaction. It's fueling how we are, experiencing this situation. We are feeling very helpless because we cannot really stop the invasions ourselves, and therefore sort of help to get out of these situations. Some of us might be feeling extremely lonely because of that. And we are exposed to media, and the media is now in our phones. So basically we're living in this war crisis every minute of every day, just enough to have a smartphone in our hands. And in many cases, and I think this is very important to say, that our daily lives have been or could have been disrupted. Maybe some of you have taken refugees, maybe some of you have taken actions and gone out to help. And let's remember that while action is a very good part of helping, and it can decrease the helplessness and give us a sense of direction, any changes that are brought in to our everyday life, any disruptions, are also huge stressors. So I'm saying that also to give you a context that this is an extremely stressful situation. The fact that it's a war, it's a added stress, added layer. And with the COVID pandemic as well, we as a society, let's remember, have been already under a lot of stress and under uncertainty over the past years. So it's like another layer of us being put over, another layer that is adding to our systems that have been very exhausted over the past years as societies. So again, please don't judge how you are reacting to stress. please don't judge how you are reacting to the crisis and to the war in Ukraine. If you are in a state that you really need support right now, you're really threatened, you are really fearful, or and it's okay for you to also need and ask for support, even if the war is not directly touching your life at this very moment. It's also very important for you, if you are feeling fine, not to judge other people who are not feeling fine at this moment. It's very important that if you're not feeling fine, you're not judging the people who are feeling okay. It doesn't mean that they're not sensitive. Every one of us has a different spectrum of reactions in the stress category, and I invite you to kind of take a lot of kindness to yourself, not judge yourself. Understand that this is also a time for you to do what you need. And now, also a little bit of psychological knowledge, hopefully that normalizes this experience and that gives you broader context from our science, is we can also, and we do treat war as a crisis. And crisis is something that is understood as a temporary loss of balance, and obviously it's connected to feelings of like we don't have the resources to deal with it. So we lost the balance because we cannot deal with a situation. And now a beginning of a crisis is usually very highly emotional, but that's at the same time is very personal. So people react in different ways. But because of the fact that this might be something that is over our resources of dealing with a situation, we might have difficulties in carrying out different tasks. We might be feeling helpless, lack of purpose. There might be cognitive consequences, like for me, and like the loss of focus. Crisis is very draining and it seems to be unbearable, but and this is important to notice, that it seems to be unbearable. It usually is, and it's important to have the second perspective that crisis in psychology and in history and in societies also is seen as something that people can grow from, and this is also including the war crisis and people being treated in horrible ways, and it's a quite well documented observation. So yes, this is right now something that is huge and that is very disrupting and very draining. But in the context of crisis, there is a possibility of not being stuck in crisis, but of growing from crisis. And in psychology, it's when it comes to situational crisis, like we have right now, it's usually said that some improvement can or should happen within the first 6 weeks. And there's different types of crises that we can see. Some of them are personal, some of them are societal, and this is, I think, also to have somewhere in the back of our head that while we might not be in the personal crisis right now, and we might be okay with dealing with the situation, the society is in a crisis, and it might be us in neighboring countries. If in Ukraine, I'm Polish, so I'm speaking from that perspective. It might be obviously the country of Ukraine and the nation of Ukraine is experiencing a societal crisis. So let's be mindful of that different perspective. There's also different types of crisis. It might be a situational, let's say, one-off crisis, and there might be chronic crisis that is going on for a longer period of time. And the reason why I'm saying that is because sometimes, especially when we are in a crisis and and it's stretching in time, there might be one stressful situation that will push us over the edge towards the sort of chronic crisis experience. And it's important also to have that context of exhaustion of our mental energy, and something that we should have in our mind. But there's other crises in psychology, such as developmental crisis and existential crisis, as you know, and developmental crisis as something that those of you who are parents might know is a moment when a child is doing this sort of developmental jump, and it's characterized by first a regression and taking a step back, but then if the child is given enough support in the moment of crisis, it usually is continued by the sort of development jump. And I'm saying this because a lot of crises have similar trajectories, and this knowledge can maybe help us in understanding as well what we are experiencing. So the reason why I shared all that is I want you to have a little bit of context from psychology that we are right now reacting to stress, we are reacting to crisis. We might be reacting in a variety of ways, and I really invite you not to judge them and not to judge yourselves. But now I wanted to take some time actually with you guys to understand what is it that we can do to help ourselves going through all these different experiences that we are going through. And I will focus on that part for the longest time. Again, I am now not seeing your questions because I'm sharing you the screen, but please, if you have any questions or if you have some thoughts, please feel free to share them in the chat function. Okay, so something that any of you who has flown a plane has heard many times, that, with taking care and any type of care that we are practicing, it's very, very important to take care of yourself first. And this is especially important if you have others to take care of. And you know how in a plane, everyone urges you to take a mask, oxygen mask for you first, and then to assist the kids if you're traveling with them. That is, from a very logical perspective, is that if you are unconscious, you are unable to help. And I think in this situation, I really encourage you as well to take a look at yourself, and if you are involved in different actions, then you are also making sure that you are not overexhausting your systems, and that you yourself are fit and adequate to help. So that's actually very, very important right now. And now, before we go into that, let's act and how can we do that, I think something that is incredibly important right now, and that's for our mental health, but also for the mental health of our systems, is if we ventilate and if we name our emotions. So basically say, what is it that we are feeling? You know this in psychology, you might have heard about it from many different sources, but everything in psychology that pushes things under the rug and tries to make them disappear is going to come back at you at some point or the other, and is basically an unhealthy practice that can have then negative consequences for your mental health. So naming however you feel and letting that out and being honest with your emotions is a first step to deal with them in a very adequate way. And now something to really, really, really remember is that stress is not an emotion. We tend to generalize everything and feeling like and say that, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm stressed. But that doesn't really inform us about the different emotions that we are feeling. And therefore, it's not really giving us a very adequate way out of these emotions, or is not acknowledging them in the best way. For example, my stress has been connected with a huge grief and a huge feeling of loss over the people that are fighting in Ukraine. It's been connected with the feeling of threat that I have for my friends there. I've been experiencing tremendous levels of anger and frustration. I think that that is also important to notice that anger is is a very adequate emotion in that situation. That does not mean that we are aggressive. It might just mean that we are angry. And of course, I'm fearful for how the war is going to affect the lives of many people in Ukraine, but also if it's gonna affect other countries as well, and in what ways. So I encourage you to take a second and really think about what have you been feeling when it comes to this situation, and what are your emotions? Because this is sort of obviously my map. But what are your emotions when it comes to this situation? That's kind of a step one when it comes to the way of how can we deal with that in an adequate way. And now, emotions are there, and they serve us as an information about something. And as kind of a step two, I encourage you to accept that you might be feeling different emotions, but right next to emotions, just as we did at the beginning of this meeting, we also focused for a second on our thoughts, and I kind of also invite you to understand and to take a second to reflect of what is it that this situation is doing to some of the thoughts that you might be having over the conflict, like are you fearful for your country? Are you fearful? Is it about your values of conflict? Of what is it really that this situation is doing to you? I invite you to take that reflection right now. What have you been thinking when it comes to this situation? And sort of accepting that, yes, this situation has shaken my feeling of security and has made me, for example, think about my own mortality or a mortality of my friends, which is something that is very, quite often pushed away from our conscious thinking and from our everyday life, to be contacted with mortality. So accepting the fact that this situation is real, it has affected us, it made us in contact with some of the thoughts and some of the realities we don't want to be in contact with, is also a good way to deal with it in a healthy way, and not to squish it under the rug when it can sort of grow bacteria and we don't know what is happening, but for us to be understanding how are we affected. So I encourage you to even now take this second to think, how is that affecting us? And now, something that I really encourage you to do is to anchor yourself to here and now. And we try to do that at the very beginning of this meeting. So whenever you are experiencing this very intense emotions and maybe a feeling of panic, or maybe a feeling of threat, or thoughts overrunning, or it doesn't necessarily have to be intense, but it can be prolonged, like you've been having a really bad week right now, or anything really. It's very good to bring ourselves back to here and now, and to take a perspective of the present moment that is, not happening in the past, and that it's not also happening in the future. Anything that can bring us to here and now might be very helpful for our mental health. So any moment of stopping and reflecting, just like the moments that the exercise that we did. So take a second, think about how you are in your thoughts, think about what you're feeling right now, and think about what is it doing to your body. Normally anxiety is in my stomach, for example, but also in my back. So again, very stiff here. And this moment of recognizing is very important, and can kind of jerk us from either ruminating of what's already happening, or catastrophizing of what might it lead to. Let's just jerk ourselves back and be in the moment. And a good practice as well, and this might be very helpful if you are also supporting other people who are going through something that you might feel is not really helpful to their mental state, is grounding yourself. And now you guys have switched off cameras and mics. So I invite those of you who want to take a part in the exercise to maybe stand up from your chairs. You might be still seated, but a good practice as well to kind of realize where are we here now is called grounding, and everything that you can see to kind of ground ourselves literally to the ground. So you might take a second to notice where and how are your feet touching the ground. Are you wearing shoes? Are you wearing socks? What is the temperature of the ground that you're touching? What is the texture? If you're wearing fluffy socks, concentrate on them for a second. If you're touching tiles or you're touching wooden floor, concentrate on that. You can either also kind of shift your balance and shift your body weight a little bit to kind of feel the floor a little bit. Now, taking exercises like that and kind of remembering and taking a mindful moment of my feet are touching the ground, I am here and now, might be very, very important right now to, again, either stop us from repeating what has happened before and also stop us from catastrophizing what might be happening. So those of you who have tried this exercise, you can tell us how it went, and if not, just keep it in your backpack of exercises that you can do or you can propose to other people while doing. And now, especially if you're in a very high anxious moment, it's I think a very good practice to take some mindful moments of your surroundings. And sometimes if people are not yet able to even do a basic grounding exercise, it's a good idea to even ask someone or ask yourself to count yellow things in your apartment, or red objects in your apartment, or things that are a given texture. These are sort of techniques to bring you back to here and now. But I think the one that I mostly stand by is kind of checking with yourself. Where are you with your thoughts, with your emotions, and with your body? And I think that moment of reflection has been not only crucial and helpful for me, but also for the clients that I work with. And especially, I think, as you have to understand that our brains are not our biggest friends when it comes to our mental health sometimes. And I think all of us have experienced this moments that if something bad has happened to us, we tend to repeat the situation over and over and over in our heads. This is actually called rumination, and it's quite, unfortunately, a prevalent practice. And it's quite, again, unfortunately, often practice when we are experiencing some traumatic events. And now another thing that we're doing is that we're taking that bad event and we're even making it worse. We're thinking about what could have happened if this was 10 times more, a million times more. And then it leads to the fact that our stress reaction is pushing those thoughts to be basically directed onto everything that has to do with them. So we're either constantly repeating them or we're making them bigger. And here our brains are unfortunately not our friends. I often use this analogy that when it comes to our physical health, like if we have a cut or if we have a broken tooth, we're not going to grab a screwdriver and just kind of try to make this tooth, like the hole in the tooth, even worse and even more painful and, you know, even more damaging. We're not going to grab scissors and just see how the wound can go, how deep can it go, and how bad can it be for us. But when it comes to our mental health, sometimes our reactions are literally just that, are the screwdrivers or are the scissors that are unfortunately can make us feel a little bit worse or a lot worse about the situation and can be re-traumatizing. So anchoring yourself to here and now and taking some mindful moments, or in some instances planned distraction, so jerking yourself from that and, you know, forcing yourself to distract yourself with some Netflix might be a good idea. Although actually engaging in this distractory solutions we have to be a little bit careful with Netflix, with alcohol, obviously with gaming, with substances like this that can serve us bad in the long term, obviously are there for us in the short term. But whenever you are experiencing these events of either rumination or catastrophizing, try to jerk yourself off and try to contact yourself to here and now. Have some mindful moment of what is happening here, which is, if you look at the outside of the window, that you are safe, that you're in your room, that you're in your apartment, that you have someone you can hug, that you can have something you can anchor to. And this is quite crucial. And so is breathing. And I think this is one of the best ways that we can help ourselves with, and is to do some breathing. And I think times like now, we are under huge amounts of stress, are good times to introduce some practices such as mindful breathing. And I assume some of you guys already know the breathing by 4. But to those of you that know, that don't, I would like to introduce this technique. It's called the count to 4 breathing. And I would invite you to try it now. What you can do, you can close your eyes, you can keep them open. I will count to 4, and for the first 4 counts, let's do an inhale, then let's hold the breath for 4 seconds, then let's do an exhale, also counting for 4, and let's hold the breath for 4 seconds. And we can try this 2 rounds of breathing. I will count, so I cannot breathe and count at the same time, but I will happily guide you through this. So if you are ready, let's take an inhale, starting 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. This is a very simple breathing exercise, but there's many other calming breaths. There's also a very popular calming breath and different breathing techniques that is called the 4-7-8. And those of you who are experienced with mindfulness, meditation, conscious breathing, yoga, you might know these breaths. And I really encourage those of you who are not aware of them to introduce them in your daily practice right now. Breathing is an extremely fantastic way to calm your nervous system. It's actually one of the few very conscious exercises that we can input in our daily life to sort of calm the autonomous nervous system and to influence it over. And if you're like me, which some of you might be, and you hate doing these things alone, or you don't know how to, you don't know the techniques, you're not really sure where to start, this is a good time for you to go to YouTube, find some, guided breathing practices. You can install an app such as Calm or Oak, and some breathing exercises there are for free. So you can introduce that in your daily life to sort of take care of your mental health, as we all need that right now. Another thing that I will really guide you to is connecting with others. And now this is something that is extremely crucial now, as finding support in whatever it is that we are experiencing is an incredible solution for keeping us in a healthy mental state. It can bring tremendous relief of our anxiety, but it can also bring moments of joy, and we can normalize each other. If one person is panicking, then another person listening to that might share a different perspective, being like, oh, I don't really think about it right now. and that perspective sharing is basically normalizing the events for many people. We can normalize our experiences, but we can also normalize our emotions, as we discussed earlier, that it's important to name our emotions and to differentiate them from stress reaction. It's a good idea to share them with others, and it can bring lots and lots of relief. And on the other side, staying alone in whatever it is that you're experiencing, and however it might manifest, because it can manifest in different ways, loneliness can now fuel our anxiety, can make us feel even more isolated. It fuels our feel, it fuels our guilt. So it's important to take that step right now to connect with the people that are close to you. And now, a good tip is that let your support system know what you need from them. For example, I have let my partner know that I need at least hours in a day without any news, because exposure to them makes me feel very triggered, and I kind of don't want that conversation. And it happened to me that I called my friend and she said, listen, I know that this is a horrible situation, but I really need us to focus on something else for 1 hour. If this is something that you need from your support system, it's okay, and it's good to let them know what is it that you actually need. It's a good idea to touch, and now the touch has to be consensual, of course, but if you can bring some relief to your nervous system by hugging a person, a dog, yourself, by doing the butterfly hug technique, which is kind of like that, which is really calming. And it's a good idea right now, if your body is tense, to bring relief through either massage or self-massage. When I was going through my personal crisis in my life, I actually had massage booked, I think every week, and physiotherapy that helped to relieve the tension. And it was actually, in looking back at the steps that I have taken at this very moment, a very good way for me to bring this moment of relief and from the relief of physical pain. Now, I will obviously direct you to sports and everything that you can do to take care of your body. Now is the time. Sport will decrease the level of cortisol that we are having, so it will act like a natural antidepressant. I would be a little bit more mindful maybe and choose some of the practices that have calming effects, such as in yoga, for example, when the practice is really calming down our nervous system. And if you do want to take care of your body, and I think this is also a good idea to do, now it's kind of the time to try relaxation techniques. And again, I would maybe direct for you to either YouTube or Schultz or Jakobson to try the guided relaxation techniques that can help us relieve the tension from your body. It's a good idea right now to try anything that can relieve, obviously, any tension that we might have. Any connection with nature, as we're going through the list, is very crucial. It might be our mindful distressor, and just a tip from me is to take a friend that will act again as your support system, as a normalizer for your emotion, like that will be the space to outlet whatever you're feeling or experiencing, but can also serve as a time without our phone, which are very crucial right now. Let's remember that for our brains, there's no really difference between what we're seeing on the phone and the perceived danger and the stress reaction that we might have. This is why those videos and the news that we might watching might be very triggering for us and might cause us great stress. So it's important right now that we take very mindful use of our devices. And I'm not saying like leave them forever. I have to work with my smartphone as well, but it might be a good idea right now to play with these notifications, to switch off the phone or some notifications for hours when you have the time to kind of go back to your normal life, and not fall into traps of doom scrolling. I don't know if you have heard, but this is also an effect that we are trapped in this rumination also, and we're trapped in the negative cycle of news, and we look for more and more and more of them as they are sucking us in. And then it's hard to get out of that cycle, which obviously has an instant effect on our mental health. So it's important to prevent this from happening and to take mindful moments of not allowing it to happen. And now, something that I would really encourage you is also to think about what and who can you rely on in this situation. So as you're going through the crisis and as you are in touch with what is happening in Ukraine right now, think about who can support you right now. Is it a friend? Is it a partner? Is it someone that you've met? Is this a support? Is this a professional help that you might have? Who can act as your biggest supporter right now? And take note about that. Think about what can you do to support yourself, and what can you think to support yourself. Maybe there are specific thoughts that you have that are very supportive right now. Maybe there's a state in your body that is very supportive right now. Like, for example, you might anchor to the feeling that you have after sports, and you know that when whatever happens, you might have that feeling. And now this is also a good tip if you are supporting another person, is to direct them towards what they have. So direct them towards the resource that they can reach whenever they need support. And I encourage you, if you have a second right now, and if you have a pen and paper like I do, or not, and a note in your phone, to kind of pick one and think who can support you if you are feeling really stressed, and if you're feeling overwhelmed with the current situation. What can you do to support yourself? And also, when supporting others, it's a good idea to direct them into what is happening that they're holding on. So directing them not not onto the crisis, but what is it that you're doing that allows you to stay here and not to fall apart? I'm sorry. And this is very important. Yes, let's act. Acting is a great way to combat helplessness, can restore our sense of meaning and direction. And it's a great way right now that we can engage in helping others. It's very helpful for us, and can restore that feelings that we have lost due to the situation in Ukraine. I do and will say that again: take care of yourself. Check if the actions are not exhausting you. We in mental health world, we can support others because we usually have a lot of support system that supports us. We have practices like supervision or intervision, which are usually meetings that I can go to and, for example, talk about some stressful events in my life or some stressful events in my sessions. So I have some place that I can ventilate my emotions. I usually also work with someone who helps me with my body, like the physiotherapy that I take for my back and for my spine. So take that. In mental health world, it's okay to support yourself. So support yourself. And I found this somewhere in the internet over the past few days. It was going online, but I think it's a very good representation. If you just act without taking breaks and taking care of yourself, you will burn out immediately. But if you help and take breaks and take rests and take these mindful moments and take a moment to recharge, fill your cup, you are at a better spot to provide more adequate, more helpful help. Of course, those of you who need it, seek professional support. And this is very important to think about it, as you don't need support to when you're, you don't need to become depressed. It's better if you're not depressed. You don't need to have it worse than anyone else. It's a good time right now to seek support, to help ourselves go through that crisis. You don't have to become like really severely ill or severely affected. You might just want to use some support going through the situation. It's perfectly okay to seek a psychologist, a therapist, a crisis coach that can act as your help. And now this is something that is That is quite hard for me actually as well to achieve, but I'm really trying. This is me. I think a couple of days ago when I was actually going through a hard moment, and I went to do some sports and took this picture afterwards because I felt really recharged and really connected to the nature and really here and now. And what I really want to say today is that it's very, very, very important to make space for happiness, to make space for joy, to feel positive emotions and not feel guilty over them, to have a good week overall, and to make space for this positive emotions in the horror that we're experiencing, because without that we are basically gonna fall apart, and we need to stay strong for ourselves and for other people that we're gonna be supporting. So make space, make mindful space for that joyful moments, and try to live in the way and try to direct your thoughts towards life, even though obviously war directs a lot of our thoughts and a lot of our thinking towards death. But making this kind of like anchoring physical change in our thinking and directing it in a different way can really be a great source of energy. And remember, we have to fill the cup in order to later live. Last couple of minutes when supporting others, as we said before, don't judge what they're going through. Listen, create space to ventilate emotions, ask for that space if you need support. Be honest and empathetic towards people that you're supporting. That also is connected to children and teenagers. Obviously, these groups are different. When supporting them, it's important not to lie, but also to adjust whatever you are saying to their age and to their cognitive abilities, as we don't want to install panic or anxiety in others. And now something very, 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 very crucial. If you are supporting other people who are having it worse, maybe you are supporting refugees that have come into your house and to your families, remember that these people might not always have a full access to all the resources and even access to something like kindness. They might seem rude, or they might seem whatever there might be, because their bodies have been through shock. So if you are seeing that a person is feeling very lost and that crisis have taken them to the sort of freeze reaction, our role as supporters is almost to act as their frontal lobe. Let's remember that stress is really, really hugely reacting on our frontal lobe, which is responsible for strategizing, making decisions, planning, things like that. So if you're supporting a person that is in that state, let's first of all remind them about the very basic needs, such as you need to eat at a certain hour, you need to wear the jacket, you need to go to sleep because now it's the time to sleep. When people are hugely distressed, they might not be necessarily in contact with their needs, and guiding them towards the basic needs and guiding them towards others, toward their bodies is a huge step in that. And please also don't judge. It might be that they are going through something that is very unspeakably devastating, and they might not necessarily have access to everything that they would have access to in normal life. A reminder at the very beginning of that, I'm doing whatever I can, and I don't want to judge it. Okay, I will stop sharing the screen. So I am here with you now, and please let me know if you have any questions, then I will be happy to answer them. I think that we can share, I will change the mode of the meeting, and now if you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer them too. You can ask the questions in the chat, but you can also ask them in, unmute yourself and ask them normally. Okay. I see that someone is writing, so I will take a moment. Whoever wants to ask any questions, I will be happy to answer the best way possible. Okay. Thank you again. Thank you for listening. Thank you for those who have stayed. Hopefully, this session have served as a little reminder of what can we do to take care of ourselves. Obviously, it's my personal set of tools, but I try to share with you whatever has been the most valuable for me in the past, years of my practice, but also looking at the last week. Please take care of yourself. Hopefully connect with others, connect with nature, breathe, sleep. It's a good idea to introduce everything that is going to be fueling our mental health right now, especially now. We brush our teeth, we wash our hands every day to take care of our physical health. It's a good time right now to brush our minds and meditate and breathe and do everything that we can do to take care of our mental health now. It's a really, really, really important time, especially as we're going on a marathon of also supporting others in the process. So I see some thank yous on the chat, but I would still give you guys a minute if someone still has questions. If not, remember that Hear Me also as a company is there for you, and you can connect with a specialist, be it a psychologist or a therapist that can help you through the process, or if necessary, breathe with you on the count of 4 and support you further in supporting yourself throughout the process. So you can contact Hear Me and either seek help in that aspect or seek support. Okay. So I am switching off the recording